We all love a good underdog story, right? Now, oftentimes within that underdog story, there's also a story of rebellion. And some of my favorite movies growing up reflected this underdog rebellion story. You can go back a ways and think of guys like James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, maybe a little bit more recent, Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games, iconic movies like Oscar Schindler and Schindler's List, lighthearted movies like Footloose, and then there's an array of war movies, with the most prominent being, of course, William Wallace and Braveheart. Our nation was built on this idea of rebellion. It's not hard to see why this is attractive to us. A rebel resists authority, and when that authority is evil and unjust, we really embrace that rebel story, don't we? And oftentimes we like to frame up Jesus in this way, the ultimate rebel. What if I told you that Jesus came to stop a rebellion rather than lead one? Oftentimes we view people in positions of power, and Jesus is the one that rebels against that, and we follow Jesus. But really, it's Jesus that is in the position of power, and we are the ones that rebel. Oswald Chambers, in his devotion, he says it like this. He said, "Sin is not weakness, it is a disease. It is a red-handed rebellion against God, and the magnitude of that rebellion is expressed by Calvary's cross." We rebel against people and systems that we believe are not worthy of being our authority. See, while on earth, Jesus did everything possible to demonstrate that he is the authority and worthy of our obedience. In John chapter 14, Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says these words in verse 23. He says, "All who love me will do what I say. My Father will love them, and we will come and make our home with each of them." See, Jesus is pointing to something that is hard for a lot of us to imagine. He's pointing to a home of order and not chaos. That's what home looks like. That's what trusting Jesus looks like. See, in our study of 1 John, we see in chapter 2 what it means for us to be obedient to Christ. It says this in verse 4, "If someone claims, 'I know God,' but doesn't obey God's commandments, that person is a liar and is not living in the truth. But those who obey God's word truly show how completely they love him." See, our obedience to Jesus is a reflection of our love for Jesus. When we rebel against a perfect authority, we are essentially telling Jesus, actually, Jesus, I'm the authority of this part of my life. A life of obedience and submission, it's not easy, but it does make everything better. Let's dedicate ourselves to a life of long obedience in the same direction and show the world that we live in a world that Jesus is the authority.